Good morning, everybody. I just want to say a big thank you to all the people who have helped me through this. It's no special order, but I want to say thank you to Pastor Paul because we've had a bunch of meetings and talks and like really good come to Jesus meetings together. And plus, nobody can say that their pastor took them to get a caramel frappe, but mine did. Like, we went to McDonald's and had a whole talk about this, and he paid for my caramel frappe, and that was great. So that really calmed the nerves, and it was a good talk. We talked about a lot of important things because I love how no matter what, when I'm with him, we can talk from anything to being in the church and the speech that I'm supposed to do, or we can be talking about personal life matters with each other. And that is a big thing to me, to be able to share my feelings with someone that deeply, because it's not always easy to just go up to somebody and tell them all the thoughts in your mind and stuff like that. But Pastor Paul has made it easy for me to be able to express how I feel. And that's part of the reason that I'm here today. But I also want to give a big thank you to my mom and dad who have pushed me to do my best, and my mom forcing me to do English lessons so I can make this paper. And my friends and family, whether you drove 5 minutes to be here or an hour from Goldsboro, it all means a lot to me. And I just want to say thank you to all my church family, because all of you have known me since I was like this big, and all of you have backed me up and just shared my story, because I know that we all have prayed for each other as a church family, and it has helped a lot. I mean, I never thought in a million years I'd be able to come up here and preach, but I'm here now, I guess. But I want to circle back to how I said about talking about our emotions and stuff, because I made this paper. So, by the way, Pastor Paul said I can read off the paper if I need to, so I might do that. But he kind of showed me how easy it is to talk to people about our feelings. And I wrote this paper during Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's talking about our emotions and how it can circle out through our life and how our emotions really affect us and what the Bible says about that. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to talk about, but that's why I'm here. I wanted to be up here talking about it because it's not easy, and I think that everyone should be able to talk about their emotions to anyone. And so, first off, I wanted to say that the Bible speaks of multiple things that pertain to feelings and emotions, so I felt like that was an important part of the Bible that shouldn't be overlooked. Obviously, to me, that's a huge deal. And I've had a lot of experiences with emotions and anxiety and stuff like that, because that's a part of life. And that's why the Bible talks about it so much, is because we're not the only ones who have experienced it. Everyone has experienced it. All of us go through it, whether we're this big or we're as tall as I am or taller. But anyways, before I get off the deep end, I'd like to say that most people in life have experienced anxiety. That's the first thing I want to go over. Now, to mention, that's something I'm definitely experiencing today. And before today even, I was super anxious about writing this paper, and then I was like, well, I can't just stare at the paper the whole time. I got to think of what I'm going to say. So then I was even more anxious. But I'm trying to get over that, I guess. I'm shaking in my boots. But anxiety has a many of symptoms. A lot of the symptoms consist of heavy breathing, shakiness, like I'm shaking right now, apprehension, and types of fear. So there are a wide range of things that can cause anxiety, such as being stressed due to an upcoming exam, stress of being in a large crowd of people, or I guess your church family, or maybe writing a paper for church. But it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it can motivate you to do things in the right manner or in a quick manner, because if we didn't have that little fear in us of not getting it done, we would never get it done. We would just procrastinate. So it can motivate you to do things in a quick manner. And I've experienced lots of anxiety before, whenever I was like getting ready for competitions, because a lot of us know that I do dance, and that's something I'm very passionate about. But it is a little scary to get up on stage in front of a huge group of people. I'm sure my friends over here know that. But yeah, it can be scary, whether you're competing and you're trying to win an award, or you might just be performing like we do at the East Oakland High School. So that's how I've experienced anxiety, and a lot of it I've dealt with it through my family and friends and even my pastor. And it helped me a lot whenever I talked about it, because a lot of not just men, but all of us in general have struggled with letting our emotions on. And my mom kind of showed me how to do that. She showed me that talking to her, like, I can always talk to her. I've always been able to, and I've always been able to talk to my friends if I needed to. So I think that for me, talking about your feelings it can be very impactful on your life, and it has for me, because it was scary at first, and the first few times maybe you just met somebody and then you just slowly learn to let things onto them and tell them how you feel. It can be scary, but it can help you to grow together. So you're not just telling them how you feel, but when you tell others how you feel, it leads them to want to tell you how they feel, so you can help each other and you both grow together through Christ. Someone in the Bible that I wanted to talk about that has experienced anxiety was Peter. So right here I've got in Matthew 14:22 through 33, it talks about how Peter was anxious to approach Jesus when he was standing on the water. It says, immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he dismissed them, he went up to a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it is you," Peter replied, "tell me to come with you on the water." "Come," he said. So then Peter got down out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, beginning to sink, and cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." For me, that shows even he experienced anxiety. With Jesus standing directly in front of him, he was in the presence of the Lord, standing on the water, and the Lord said to him, even the Lord said to him, "You can come with me on the water." And he still had a little bit of doubt and fear. It shows no matter how comfortable you are with someone, no matter how much you know you can trust them, it can still be scary because you don't know what's coming next. And you don't know how their reaction is going to be. You might be like, "Oh, I'm going to tell this person how I feel." And then you're like, "Whoa, what if they actually are not siding with me? What if they don't like what I say?" It can be scary, and it shows very well that, like, he was in the presence of Jesus, and he still doubted. He still had fear. And Jesus still took him in. Jesus still helped him out of it, and he didn't let him be alone. He showed Peter, like, "You can come with me, like, you're still safe." So to me, that shows that it's okay to be vulnerable with somebody, and it's okay to, like, you shouldn't be ashamed of yourself if you're apprehensive to share with somebody, because even full-grown adults or people my age or children, they can feel the same exact way. But for me, anxiety, it can interfere with your life too, and it can be a little bit of a burden, and it can make things difficult. So here I've gotten it written down. An important thing to remember is that if anxiety becomes persistent or excessive, it can interfere with your daily life and become a disorder. One of my favorite Bible verses that pertains to mental health is 1 Peter 5:7. "Cast all of your anxiety on him because he cares for you." This Bible verse shows that we should trust in the Lord, and he would take care of us and relieve us from our anxiety. So for me, anxiety can be a challenge. I've experienced a lot of anxiety when preparing to perform at dance competitions, plenty of times, or even when preparing a message for the church. but I will always resort to praying about it or confiding my family and friends, especially my mom. I have noticed that some people get embarrassed by their anxiety, but I just want to make it known that anxiety isn't something to be ashamed of. Even the men and women in the Bible have experienced anxiety. So to me, that just shows that we have someone we can relate to. We're not alone. We are never going to be alone, because not just the people we know have dealt with it, but it's people we don't know, people we can know if we read the Bible. If we read the Bible and learn about their stories, we can relate ourselves to them, because they were people too. And they had all the same emotions, and they've probably experienced a lot of the same stuff, just maybe not with a camera in front of them. But it was definitely very similar to the stuff we deal with now mentally and physically, but like the shakiness in my hand. So it's important to remember that you can always find someone to relate to, and there will always be someone there to help you, whether it's your pastor, your family, the people in the Bible, or God himself. So I think that's anxiety as a whole thing. There's many branches to it. It can show you how it can be helpful and how it can be a burden and how it can be related to sharing with others, and maybe sharing with others about your anxiety and telling people how anxious you can be. And that's definitely not easy to do. But another thing I wanted to talk about, another, what would you call it? I don't know. Emotion. There we go. So another commonly discussed mental disorder is depression. Depression can be very impactful on anyone's life who experiences it. Now, this one I wanted to talk about because this one is one that it can either be overly used or not talked about enough. Some people will say, I have depression and I'm just so sad and everything, but maybe they're not, and it might be overused because people don't truly know what it is. And then there's also some people who experience it and never talk about it. There are many people, celebrities like Robin Williams, who went through depression. Nobody knew it. But as soon as you find out, you're like, wow, that person experienced that. They went through what I went through. It shows that not everyone talks about it. Depression is a very hidden emotion and a very commonly talked about thing that is also hidden. I don't know how to explain it. It's it can be talked about constantly, but no one truly knows exactly what it's like unless you've experienced it. But anyways, signs of depression are sadness, guilt, irritability, and sleep, or lack of sleep. So depression can make it extremely difficult to enjoy things that you would normally enjoy on a day-to-day basis. So we should try our best to avoid feeling as though there is no escape from depression, because in the Bible it says in Isaiah 41:10, "Don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, and I will hold you up with my victorious right hand." So God clearly states that he will help bring us out of our sadness and uplift us to be our best. God wants us to enjoy life and be happy. So he always has said that he will provide us with rest for our souls in the following verse. Matthew 11:28-30. "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So in this Bible verse, it shows that God is merciful and he wants us to enjoy life as we follow in his image. So it shows that even God wants us to experience happiness, and he shows that he cares and he's willing to help us with that. Depression is very hard to deal with, and there could be one person in this room who deals with it, or there could be 20 of us or 30 of us, and it can be very hard to deal with, especially from the experiences that I've heard from my friends who I believe who went through depression, and my family members and people who have lost family members and been depressed by it, because I've seen my grandparents or parents or friends and my friends' families and stuff like that. they've all experienced losing people, and we all know how depressing that can be and how upsetting it really is to lose someone. So the Bible shows that through him, he's willing to help us out of it. He is always going to be here for us and support us, and he shows us that he has a way for us to get through it, and he's always going to be there no matter what. And that's one of my favorite things about the Bible, is it shows that God is there no matter what, that he's willing to help us through anything, whether it be depression or anxiety. If we're scared and anxious, like, he's always going to be there. And it reminds me of how families are meant to be bonded, because it's always been, for my family, we've always had each other's back. We're packed together like an avalanche, like the snow from an avalanche. We're packed together, and we are there for each other, and we hold each other tight and help each other. Even when we're rolling downhill super fast and it's like a big struggle, we're still packed together and staying strong. So life will always have struggles and difficulties, but that's not going to define the kind of person that you are. So for me, I was supposed to keep reading, but I want to say something about this. For me, that shows that a lot of people define themselves by the experiences they're put in, and a lot of people define themselves by the struggles that we go through, even in our faith. But what people don't realize is the struggles that are put in our life, like our doubt and our faith and stuff like that, that we all have experienced. It shows that it doesn't, like, all those bad thoughts, all those doubts and stuff comes from the devil. He's the one who's pushing the doubts into our life, and that's the experience that we're getting put through isn't what's meant to be there. So we shouldn't let that define us. We should let the way that we react from that define us. The way that God helps us out, our family helps us out, and the way we push ourselves through is what defines us as we are as a person. It's not going to be if I'm sitting in the corner alone. That doesn't define me as a person. It's how I walked out of it happy anyways. It doesn't matter that I was alone for the next 30 minutes to an hour. It matters that I was still happy whenever I walked out that corner and met my family in the end. To me, that's what's important. Just pushing through the struggles and remembering that you are only defined as what you do and what you believe and the way that you perceive things. That's how, now, people's image of you, that can be their opinion, but that doesn't define you either. That's still how other people define you. But you and how you define yourself and how God defines you is what's really important. So, to me, that is a huge thing. And a big thing that we can struggle with whenever it comes to reacting and making sure we define ourselves in a good way, well, something that we struggle with that is anger. Anger is something that I've sadly dealt with quite a bit when I was younger, whether it was yelling at the game whenever, like, I was shot by someone in Call of Duty, of course, or my mom yelling at me because I was screaming at the TV and then I get mad. Like, all those dumb experiences that I went through, what really matters is being respectful afterwards. And yeah, you may have been angry at the game, or you may have been angry because your mom yelled at you. What really matters, yes, I'm looking at you. What really matters is how you actually respond from it, how you're still respectful to your mom, and how you're still respectful to others around you and the people you're playing the game with, or the people you're walking through life with. If you're playing sports and you're getting angry at your teammates because they didn't pass you the ball whenever they should have, well, that's still, you shouldn't be angry at them. They still make mistakes and they're still human. So always try to be apprehensive to anger. Always hold yourself back from that. Always keep yourself away from it, and don't let that be your first resort. So to me, anger is very important to know a lot about and how to react to it. So learning to hold your temper is something that is definitely a learned skill, but a very important one. Taking your anger out on people is what's the sin, but anger itself isn't the sin. So the Bible states this in Ephesians 4:26-27. While anger itself isn't sinful, we should not let it fester. Instead, we should address it promptly and avoid sinning in our anger. So anger can be an extremely controlling emotion. Anger isn't an emotion to be taken lightly because how you react to anger can lead to upsetting others. And the Bible states that we should attempt to stay calm. In James 1:19 through 20, it says, "Be slow to anger and quick to listen, slow to speak. Human anger doesn't produce the righteousness that God desires." It wasn't this verse exactly, but there was something a lot like it my mom wrote on the chalkboard at our house one time, talking about how we shouldn't be quick to anger. And that is a big thing that stuck with me through my mom, is because she has showed me that you can win a lot of more of your battles and a lot more of your struggles if you try to take it nicely and happily than letting anger take control, because that always leads down the wrong path. And literally have never been angry and had something good come out of it. I don't think any of us really have. But a good way to distract yourself from these negative emotions is to replace them with good emotions. That's something that I have learned through my life, is that whenever I was going through something difficult, I wouldn't necessarily try to distract myself, because of course you still know it's there. You can't just pretend it's not there. It's always going to be there. But distracting yourself in a way of replacing it and remembering that good things will come afterwards, that is something that has been a huge deal in my life, because I've remembered times that I was dealing with something I really didn't want to deal with, but I knew right there at the end goal there was a huge pot of gold sitting there waiting for me, and that's what I was fighting for. So that's how I have went through a lot of it. And finding happiness in bad situations can be difficult, but it's always achievable through God. The Bible shows that God understands that there will be times where we struggle emotionally, but God states that through Him, we can find happiness in Him. Some people may not even realize how much the Bible speaks of emotions and how to deal with them. But I've gathered a few verses so far just to kind of help bring that into light, that there is verses where it's talking straight about how people feel and the stuff that they deal with, because a lot of people don't realize that the Bible isn't just a book of stories. In those stories, it teaches us more than just that. It teaches us how they dealt with their emotions and their mentality, and it's not just showing that person and what they did, it's showing how they did it and the emotions that they felt while they did it. It's so much deeper than that. It's so much deeper than just watching a movie and seeing somebody doing something, because you don't know what's going through their mind while they're doing it. But the Bible helps us to know that. It shows us what's going through their mind while they do it. It's so much more clear than just watching somebody do something. So the Bible says in Proverbs 17:22, "A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones." This verse shows that being cheerful can be good medicine to heal our hurt and replaces our negative emotions. Another verse, Romans 12:12, "Rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, and be constant in prayer." So it's important to keep God in our life and stay in prayer to continue our relationship with Him. Praying, that distracts you just as much, because instead of sitting here and being sad and angry and any other emotion that's negative, you can pray about it and have God help you through it. And that's not only taking time away from sitting there and being sad or angry, it's taking away time and having God help you through that time that you have afterwards. And then for the last verse that I have, it's Psalm 37:4. "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." It is saying that if we follow God's directions, it will strengthen our spirit and lead us in His footsteps. God has paved the way for us to be more like Him. So it's just our job to simply follow His guidance to everlasting happiness. So controlling your emotions can be difficult for anyone, but through God we can learn how. It's a learned skill that takes time and practice as you mature. Remembering the importance of others' feelings is also challenging at times, but we should always take other people's feelings into consideration. We can never be sure of the emotions someone is struggling with, so it's important to keep in mind that others are going through battles of their own too. Now, when I say that, I really mean it's very important to look deep into how other people feel, because you may be misled by the way that you think someone feels because you assume it. But whenever you take a step back and realize, wow, they're dealing with the loss of a loved one, and it happened a month ago and I forgot about it, but they didn't forget about it because that was their family member. Just because you don't remember right to start with doesn't mean it didn't happen. So it's smart to remember, take a step back and look at that person and think, this is the stuff that they dealt with. So maybe they have reason for feeling this way. Maybe they really aren't in the wrong, or maybe they are in the wrong, but we should be more lenient and be forgiving, have mercy for them, instead of being quick to anger, because we're not perfect either. We need to understand that others make the same mistakes that we do. So to me, that is a huge thing. So praying for others and praying for others and praying for clarity of our own feelings is very important when you or someone else is struggling. The way God shows us his understanding of these emotions expresses that we aren't alone and can always seek help from God and from other people. So to end this message, I would like to state the following verse. Psalm 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. So don't allow yourself to be ashamed of your feelings. And don't allow yourself to feel alone just because you think in your mind, right to start with, that you're alone, because when you really look into it, you're not. So always step back. Like I always say, I've said this to my friends a million times, take a step back and think, put your space between the two people, and remember that in that space, you can have communication and talk to each other about the things that we're actually going through, because we can't just assume how they feel and be right. We have to talk about it. And that's why communication is such a big thing, whether it's in friendships or relationships or in marriage, or whether it's just someone you just randomly met. Well, you can't know how they feel unless you talk to them. So I think communication is something that really helps with all emotions. That's a huge thing for me. So to me, it's always important, and that has led me a lot through life, honestly. So don't allow yourself to feel ashamed or alone just because the emotions you deal with, because the Bible states that Jesus is close to those crushed in spirit. So that shows that Jesus is close to us and willing to have communication with us through prayer and through our life experiences. He's willing to still be there for us and help us, even if we are in crushed spirit, even if we feel like we have this amount of faith in ourselves of getting done what we need to. No matter how much belief we have in ourselves, God has always believed in us. We have family members who's believed in us and friends who have believed in us, and even just random people who saw us on stage or on TV or saw us in the church and been like, I know they're going through a hard time, but I believe that they can get through it. It's more than just the people that we know that believe in us or the people that talk to us that believe in us. It's the people that we don't even know. So always remember, you almost always have people backing you. It's just not always the people that are right in front of you. It's not always obvious. It's not always very clear to see the people that will back you up if they see you talking to someone and someone's telling you, oh, you're such a horrible person and stuff like that. Well, that person might stand up and be like, actually, I saw that person preach in church Sunday, or I saw that person buy this homeless man a cheeseburger, for all you know. Like, they will still believe in you, and they will know that how good of a person you are. And that's not always clear for us to know. It's very, very hard to understand how much people care about us without them telling us. And especially knowing how much emphasis on, like, how much they really care, because sometimes, like, I might think, wow, my mom cares about me so much, it's this much, but realistically, my mom cares about me this much. So don't take it lightly. You always have family who care about you a lot more than you realize. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that it's normal to feel brokenhearted, or it's normal to feel upset about the basketball game that your team didn't win. Like, oh, well, whatever, or maybe the football game, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, they didn't win. Well, that's okay to be upset about it. It's normal. It's all of us feel those kind of emotions, and it's okay to express those emotions and talk about it. So that's a big thing that I wanted my message to be about. I will say all of this came together because of my mom being like, hey, you have 1 week to get your paper done or else you're not going to Michigan. And I was like, what? So yeah, all this was my paper that was for school, and then I was like, I really think I should make this more known, because I did it for school, and I was like, man, this is interesting. And my mom said, how I could make it a message for the church. And I was like, I really should do that. And so I got with Pastor Paul and sent it to him. And I was like, hey, what do you think of this for my next sermon at the church? And he said that he thought it was great and that we would meet up about it. And then we went and got a caramel frappe and french fries. And then we talked about it for a while. And it came to this. And it came to me sharing a message that I didn't know I was going to get to share, because I've shared it to my friends. They've all heard me talk about it, whether it's on the phone or on the game or in person. And it's a big thing for me that I've always let on. And I didn't know I was going to get to share it in the church until just a few days ago, honestly. And I'm happy that I got to, and I hope all of you enjoyed my message here, and I hope that it has touched some hearts and led you guys in the right way so that we can all learn from it and from our experiences. But I just want to say thank you all, and I appreciate you letting me speak.
Amen. Thank you, Brian, for sharing from your heart and what the Lord